Hamish. So bug me to write, Martian, Kate put out in the We'll proceed now to the next part of the night. María, Lado, a poet from Coruña, Galicia, who writes primarily, perhaps exclusively, I don't know actually, in the Galician language. A poet whose work, from what I've seen, exhibits an effervescent wit and a post-punk energy, a bleak but joyous humour. I'm very much looking forward to hearing her read. She's an international figure who seems to move between worlds, languages and locations. But please, let's welcome her here to Cork tonight. Benvido a Cork.
Hello, good evening. I am María Lado. I'm a Galician poet. I'm going to read some poems in Gallego, but I think you can read them in English. So I'm going to start. Thank you for everybody for staying here, reading or listening poetry, and thanks for inviting me to this beautiful festival. Vou empezar. Pode parecer que fui feito para safar. Un poema para sair do paso, porque nada do que escribimos é estrictamente necesario. Podemos louvar a dificultade e non se nos vai o sustento no silencio das coruxas. Por exemplo, chegamos a este lago, que é un espello. Podíamos gozar do reflexo inmaculado do ceo, pero preferimos crear esta necesidade e atendela. Pagamos pola pedra e os fragmentos e cantamos ás ondas que o desfiguran. Tirámonos en bomba. Quero dicir, dende sempre hai alguén que ama nunha festa, iso sabémolo, xente sinxela que non se alimenta de fantasmas, pero poucas veces reparamos na súa liviandade. É alguén que escolle o fácil. Cambiar de estado é sempre un trauma para a materia, a pel e o pó, a area e o diamante, a cinza e case calquera cousa que arde. Algo que ocorre sen deixar rastro, un crime case perfecto. Pero incluso esas persoas felices, por veces, vense descubertas polo sol. Un día reparan no vapor de agua a media mañá. A sombra do seu ascenso delata. E así empezou Macbeth a romper cristais, ou pensabas logo que ti non sementabas escuridade. Pero non te agobies, tamén sabemos que hai máis de literatura que de física neste transo. Non é o pan, pero zafas, zafas, zafas. E por un momento crees que xuntache los anacos. Okay, I'm going to read this poem. That the name of the poem is Bingo, or protest song of those fickle lesbians. Okay, I don't need to explain anything else. Sí, ¿verdad? Bingo, ou canción protesta das lesbianas caprichosas. Porque escribimos e nos concedida a fonte e todo canto nela desexamos, as servas e as linguas delas volvendo á agua, as súas poutas enlamadas e a poza de cristal que escachan, o fío que nace da pedra, de escaso caudal, e na fenda pola que escoa a folla. Porque escribimos, a folla ten unha ductilidade tenra, son 2 dedos na boca aberta. Imos atravesar un pausiño de cerdeira nas nosas propias bocas porque non nos gusta que nos manden calar. A presión da cerdeira é tan leve que apenas marca a clorofila e a agua cae e bebemos. Porque escribimos, somos as servas, poetas listas e problemáticas. Podían domearse, claro que sí, e abandonar as estampas da lírica medieval e dicir abertamente "Jústame bicarme cas chavalas nos baños dos bares" e despois algunha recompensa rápida, branco sobre branco, versos que nunca escribimos atravesando o cerebro e o desexo, porque nós non sabemos janar. Nunca imos para Binjo, aínda que o teñamos diante dos fusiños. Que máis advertencias precisas? Torcemos as reglas no proveito das outras e no noso propio nunca enunciamos os camiños ca rectitude que merecen. Dicimos, joder, que sorpresa, esta ladeira, cando fomos nós mesmas quen a creou, amoreando manchea a manchea a terra das súas palabras e toda canta vegetación arraiga nela. Só deixamos a deber os piñeiros contra os que partiremos os dentes durante a caída. Xa os pagaremos máis adiante. Na cara das moedas que custan hai 2 servas. Volven na agua cas pezuñas enlamadas, beben do cristal incauto que escoa pola pedra. O precio da súa liberdade é un peito cicatrizado de disparos. E ningún as mata, pero convérteas en animais asustados que na estampida estrajan as hortas ca súa propia escolla. Listas, sí, pero problemáticas. Síndrome da tristeza dos cítricos. I can't read this in English. It's very difficult because my English is very bad. But you are reading so well. Thank you. Síndrome da tristeza dos cítricos. Vistes unha textura íntegra, como de árbore. Formíjanche os brazos. Agora son 2 raíces adormecidas, porque é máis sinxelo repetir e repetir e repetir que ti levas unha mágoa elegante e perenne. Por iso deixas de buscar a lentura e manteste só de enjanos que se cortan con plástico e cunha lingua que desafía lambes na cara da xente que aínda se entrega en tarxetas de visita. Iso falo porque és nova. E por veces incomprensible en toda a túa fermosura, e aínda así, tes ese lánguido desaparecer que ostentan as poetas clásicas, e sempre acaba por cruzarse alguén a quen podes tallar como alóstrejo, partir ca coartada da galerna, alguén a quen joder a vida, porque na súa ingenuidade cree que ese sorriso teu tan fugaz é un cometa, e que algún día volverá a cruzar en chamas o teu firmamento. Alguén que ignora que esa é unha crenza antiga, fruito do descoñecemento, mitoloxía e ficción. E ademais ti odian os regalos. O místico prazer de comprender non che acae e dobraste sen empatía ningunha como unha espadaña, como se deita a erva e bica a terra, porque nos bebo no bico hasta donde non o hai, e o nordés, as venidas do río, a braña anejada ou non se sabe que, parten o teu espiñazo e abrasa a derrota. E nada pode alimentar mellor ese padecemento firme, desigual, autoimposto. Que pide a froiteira á terra que esta lle nega, Que? Por que ha de desistir a folla amarelenta e non o solo que a sostén? E o nordés, as venidas do río, a braña cada vez máis enlamada, ou que máis da que, igual a ansia que beber, deitante e íspente. E así a falta de ferro ou o veleno dos metais pesados acaba cos cítricos. E con nada se trata, e con nada remata esta carencia máis que ca 1, 2, 3. 3 saltos de liña. Nin siquiera te atreves a escribilo, joder. Es ben ruín. Es verticalo, pero iso non é nada máis que un puto milagro. Hello. Okay. This poem talks about Canal K, Radio K in the English version. Radio K is the name of a club, a discoteca. And I grew up in a small village, and this was the club where the first time I went out at night was in this club. The poem talks about the memories and how we invite our memories, because we are all the time telling like stories, and so they are not real, they are only stories, something like that. Radio K. In galego is Canal K. Canal K. Ese grupo que tanto che gusta, sabes cal che dixo? A súa voz é catedral no crepúsculo. Un leve temor ecoando a cada paso. Penso, entendes por qué? Porque cando ese peña nasiu, ti e máis eu xa tinemos fracasado en todos os propósitos. Convén ir afacéndose a idea, non é de agora que sexamos sabes, non é sorpresa que foramos abatidas e a ninguén extraña esta nosa ruína. Coméntase que era algo natural, como o voo baixo as augas dos martiños, ou para máis precisión, como xesto que rompe a tensión do río. O corpo que o atravesa é bala e todo a aceleración. E así de predecible e espectacular era que ti e máis eu saísemos perdendo. Como pequeno pescador éramos leves. Xa entregáramos á corrente os terrores da infancia, o misterio dos eclipses e, por suposto, os beixos de cristal cos que o vento asusta as sombras. Porque para ser lostre joseo abaixo recoméndase cargar apenas uns gramos, mandíbula, músculo, electricidade. E cando esa peña nasiu, había ben anos que cerrara Canal K. Canal K. A discoteca. A discoteca abeiraba un río antigo. Recordas que o domearan ca contensión do cemento? Que o sedaran con tubaxes, como se fai cos moribundos. O DJ berraba: «Todo el mundo enriba de las terimas!» E nós facíamos oídos xordos, quedábamos ben firmes no chan. Non subíamos. «Todo el mundo enriba de las terimas!» Pero nós non. Algo premonitorio facíanos temer a altura. Íamos alí a falar e a vernos, porque no campo da feira chovía. Non abría o videoclube os domingos e no meu portal protestaban as veciñas. E había que ir á discoteca. E entrábamos cun pulso preso. Supoño que tomaban esa medida de seguridade á entrada para impedirche voar de verdade. Aínda así, había quen levaba o albo baixo as ás. Recorda o guindastre amarelo. A piques estivo de levalo de sembro a canda ao tellado da discoteca, pero aguantou e o negocio volviu e puxéronlle Canal K. Na porta, iso sempre me asustaba e ti fiabas cos teus brazos un niño. Na porta subíaban as navallas á lúa, como nun poema de Lorca. Cantaban para o mozo que subiu ao guindastre cargando o seu medo branco e sejador. Recoñece. O peso desta imaxe había tempo que non nos arrastraba seu abaixo. E agora vas ti e pinchas ese grupo que tanto che gusta. O río que vos atravesa, cantan, xa nunca máis correrá libre. E teñen razón, porque cando esa peña nasiu, ti, que é o meu mellor amigo, e eu, xa nos afixéramos tristemente á morte. Un minuto, I'm lost. Un minuto. I'm lost. I lost some poems. Sí. Sí. Ok. Sí. ¿Quieres ir a drogarte? And in English is... You want to get out of your head? Bueno, puede ser, sí. Queres sair a drogarte? Morrer un cento de veces. A pedra e a corda, o peso e o baleiro, a língua do lóstrego sobre a carne da árbore. Digo isto porque o sabujeiro, cando o ispes, é dunha brancura ósea que nas polas novas aínda latexa. Enseguida comprendes que é injusto expoñelo a tronada, a fala de látego da serpe, sábelo perfectamente, sabes que ten ganas. E aínda así, alimentas ese capricho, lees nas entrañas das aves erradas mensaxes que só están en ti, crava as uñas na pena animal desa figueira triste que es ti mesma baixo o florescente dun parking, nin brisa, nin patio, nin lúa, nin marea. Sempre igual de inesperado, rezas, sempre igual de inesperado, sempre igual de... Pero non é verdade. E pregúntaste por que non che escribo. E aínda que che joda, o mellor para a literatura é que non che conteste. Porque, en realidade, o que necesitas saber é que mina alimenta ese pozo fondo, como pode o que non encher desa maneira ao peito, afundir o externo tan físicamente. Estás convencida. Nunca sabes quen ha de vir amarrarche este risón antigo, o nacemento da lingua, este risón. Así é como te sintes, con medo innato á agua fría, as mans dos argaxos, tan físicamente que che dobras sobre a mesa. Así o contas, con esas imaxes, máis ou menos. E durante días a pedra jana en profundidade e medra en peso. Esa persoa es ti, a ver se te enteras. A forza de practicar, aprendeche los nudos náuticos. Thank you very much, and I'm going to read the last one. It's enough Galego for today. Facer o mel. Claro. Non disimules agora que antes sospeitábalo, pero agora tes a certeza. Agora es selva. O teu interior atravesa unha corrente turbia, deitas unha sombra enmarañada, enferma. Loncas raíces de orquídeas nacen das túas mans e invaden con resolto descaro o espacio público. Cómeche a maleza. Ata as bestas máis feras se moven tímidamente para non atraer a túa mirada. E mentres ti esforzaste por presentarte exuberante e a túa beleza asmírase por sinxela e por salvaxe. Es fotoxénica. Favoréceche o regalo da luz. Pero digamos que as túas pernas son xigantes fieitas e baixo delas amoréanse corpos en descomposición, discretos crimes que pasan desapercibidos, pero aí están, ca súa masa e atracción licuándose na túa consciencia. O aire, por poñer un acaso, acabas por convertelo nun elemento case táctil que impide o voo dos insectos máis liviáns. Estorba incluso a túa respiración, e claro que o percibes. Tamén a ti che arrepía. Gustaríache entón que isto rematase ca aparición das abellas laboriosas e o milagre daquel aventureiro bicado polo sol, que viñesen as abellas facelo mel no corazón desta nosa morte. Pois seríache un sorprendente éxito da poesía que nos rescatasen elas, que nos convertesen en olas douradas das que flúe, calmo, o perdón.
Thank you very much.
Gracias, Maria. So, bog mí right in leis an tríú gine bheith ag léamh doing an ocht. Sé sin Theo Dorgan. So we'll move on to our third and final reader of the evening, Theo Dorgan. Beidir sé téime na híthe ná an Ildónicus, mar an seoir a bhí á léamh doing bíonn si go léir ag glúiseacht idir man agsúla agus stílan de friúla. It seems like the theme of, unintentional perhaps, of this event is the multi-generic approach of the three readers, all of whom move into different media genres and styles of presentation. And our last reader, Theo, is no exception in that regard, being not only a poet and a prose writer, and a translator, and a writer of nonfiction, and an editor, but also an occasional but very abrasive filmmaker and presenter on both radio and television. I mean abrasive in a good way. Over the years, he has strung together many, many works, which I think form kind of a chain or a necklace of gems of different colours, perhaps. The grey of the north side of Cork City, a deeper, denser grey of Kilmainham Jail, the green emerald sward of Parky Queef, not far from here, a deeper, denser green off the Cape of Good Hope, perhaps, or some cape, I forget which one. The sapphire of the Aegean, and the most recent gem to be threaded on that list of gems is Once Was a Boy, which is the book of the year here in Cork City, A Tale of Childhood. So it's one city, one book, one incredible poet, Theo Dorgan.
Abrasive? What? There was a time, Billy. There was a time. I'm mellowing. I'm delighted to be here because I'm a major fan of O'Fale. It's so multifaceted, so supportive to poets and poetry. I think Paul is one of the great heroes of our time, and all who work with him. And he has one important job to do now tonight, which is, when I have delighted you enough, make a very emphatic throat-cutting gesture, and I'll shut up. Otherwise, it's the curse of the iPhone. Nobody has a watch anymore, so I can't be discreetly glancing there. Seamus, that was wonderful. That was absolutely brilliant. An irritant tanov as the unfuinavas of winnalat. And Maria, that's the voice of the ancestors for us, settled from Galicia as we were. It's lovely to be here, and thank you, Billy, for that introduction. I didn't realize I was such a necklace of jewels, but it's very kind of you. Thank you. It's cold out there, so I'll start with a short poem called A Woman in Winter. It is on page 36. Is it? Yes. I have to write down page numbers and everything now. I used to be able to just stick bits of paper in it and put numbers on them, but those days are gone. A woman in winter. She walks the ditch, contented and alone, sends up a flight of crows with every stone. Beyond the ridge, beyond the frost-gripped fence, the light pours down on lands of innocence. A tree stands out against the winter snow, a tree her mother planted years ago. The sun flares up and shines through bitter cold on sudden flashing ornaments of gold. Let us hope. Family tree. It's astonishing when you get to a certain age, when you look back and you see how many different streams flowed into the poetry you make, from so many different cultures, so many different languages. Irish poets writing in English become more and more conscious as they get deeper into their work of how it's so deeply inflected with the syntax of Gaeilge that the Irish language's addiction to the conditional tense, as opposed to the nouns, fixities, and definites of so-called metropolitan English. And that lovely tension in our poetry, and you find it in all of our poets in English, that lovely tension between the ancestors in the Irish language murmuring in our ears and the language of the departed colonial power. It can be a source of great energy, and it can also lend a certain melancholy because the lost language is always calling to us. But fortunately, we're inflected also with the ghosts from other poetries, from other languages. Family tree. Under the bone-white moon of Granada, I name you Federico Garcia Lorca, who lived and died for love. Under the golden mosaic of Ravenna, I name you Dante Alighieri, hopelessly importuning your Beatrice. Nadiez de Mandelstam I name, who hoped against hope and then abandoned hope, but never her undying love. In the darkest of nights, these flames will keep on burning. No storm, no steel, no cold can quench these flames. One after another, I light my candles to human love, to all those in the wind, blown through the world like leaves, to those gone to the bonfires, the furnace of history, to all those who struggled for bread a moment in this life. Page 73. Lest we start cheering up, here's a nice poem set in a cemetery. It's a love poem. In Glasnevin Cemetery. The ground is heavy clay, the weighted spade a live thing in my grip as I cut the ground. Pale sky, pale rushing clouds, a brother's hands sifting your father's ashes on your mother's grave. Your sisters stand and watch, their lovely daughters gathered in close as this one last time you grant him a daughter's gesture. Here's rosemary for remembrance. I open a cup of ground as you bed it in. Here's wallflowers, you sift in compost, pat the ground firm, tough and tenacious as any dub. And I am struck, shook, to think what I owe this man I loved, this woman I never met, laid in the one grave. We finish the work. I spade the earth neat and flat. You rise from your crouch, a hand in the small of your back, her eyes, his eyes in your look, the twin dark stars that struck me spellbound the day we met. And so life goes on, borne down on the wind. I am thinking this as I heft the spade and turn to walk away, no longer sure what, if anything, I believe, until your small, strong hand takes a grip of mine. Clay and ash on the wind, on our shoes, high clouds, a keen, cold wind, your sister's laughter, their daughters stepping clear, your father and mother in the wind. And one day, my love, we too in the wind. What of it? The wind blows from always to always, and didn't you tell me once, and didn't I tell you, this is for always, and the wind and whoever spins it, and we too borne up on it beyond the grave. No. I think it must be crossing the river to the south side that's made me feel a little bit somber. What do you mean the grey north side, Billy Ramsell? It's a kaleidoscope of colour. This book, Nine Bright Shiners, there's the title sequence is 9 memories of boys I grew up with, boys who were gone on the wind, some of them. And, well, there you go. It happens. We go on. This is the third one. Fog on the playing field, late evening. We make a line, and sweeping the lank grass with our hurleys, we cross from one side to the other, searching for what is lost. Now we are cold, as sweat dries on our backs, our legs are blue, our breath staggered and wispy in the air. The line advances. Year by year, it advances towards the deep ditch where, one by one, if the earth endures, in time they will find our bones. I raise my head up and find myself still out there in that line, beating the grass in a fury, such a waste of time. I see the long file stretch out across the field, gaps in the ranks already, uncertain men where once there were boys who would downface Alexander. They would too. They would be ungracious to the city libraries, my favourite Cork institution, if I didn't read something from this. I was delighted when they, of course I was delighted when they chose Once Was a Boy as one city, one book. And mainly I was delighted because it was the first time they chose a book of poetry. And I hope it will continue. I had, as if you saw a certain documentary recently, I had a pretty rough passage through school. Many of us here had. I don't think there was a day of my life where I went into, once I'd left the convent, the blessed convent with all those lovely nuns and teachers, where we weren't beaten. And, you know, it still seems to me extraordinary that it was absolutely accepted that grown men could beat children. There were no let or hindrance. And everybody thought that was okay. Everybody thought it was okay. There was no point going home and saying, I got beaten today by a big man. Because they said, yeah, so? And these were the people who loved you. Strange time. Anyway, we move up a class. We move up a class, one more to go. We accept everything we are told. There is God who looks after everything and knows when we're bold. There is his mother and her son who is Jesus. We have bits of this from home. The picture of the man with his heart on the outside is Jesus. Jesus died for our sins. We make it up to him when we say prayers and by being good. The mother of Jesus is Mary. We sing to her, and those songs are called hymns. She has an altar, and every classroom, we sneak looks. When a door is open, we think ours has much nicer flowers. The black nuns are holy. This means special to God. When you kneel down, bits of dirt on the floor hurt your knees. You join your hands, lift up your face, eyes closed. The black nuns have their arms folded always, their hands hidden away. Not like the mother of Jesus. They have faces that don't smile, except for Sister Angela. Next year we have Sister Angela. This year we have Miss Coffee. She bosses us around. She has a loud, hard voice. She slaps people for being wrong or bold. She picks on people. One boy has German measles. When he comes back, she makes him stand on his desk. She pinches him behind the knees. Now, she said, how do you like Irish measles? He starts crying, and she slaps him for crying. We know this is wrong. We look around at each other, No need to say, we know. It is a very curious book to read because it was like having visitations from a child that I promised, I will remember this. You must remember this. And I have this absolutely clear memory of speaking to myself in the third person, you, second person rather, you need to remember this. You will need to have remembered this. And it's only after this book was finished and bound and gone away out into the world to make its own way that it dawned on me how strange that was. A 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old child telling himself, remember this, you will need to have remembered this. Learning to read. We are learning to read. Black signs on a white page. Now I am not in the room if I don't want to be. Now I can have a dog, a rich father and mother. We can have a car, an apple tree, a stream in the garden. Now I can be in places where everything comes out right, where men have horses and guns and swords, and the boys are always winning their fights. The sun shines, and when it rains, there are big log fires and mugs of cocoa. There are rivers for catching fish and high mountains to climb, long trips by train through fields of corn, or journeys by sea. These I like best of all, with the wind howling and all the sails big and white and full of the wind, and the boy is brave. He steers the ship by the big wheel all through the storm with the captain by his side, and never once, not even once, is he afraid. And it isn't all made up, like the stories my dad reads out to me. I can read about stars, jungles, dinosaurs, other countries, and what grows there, what people do, what an orchestra is, and what makes an engine work. The names of places, India, Russia, China, Japan, where people wear clothes that are different from ours, and where they eat strange food. Maybe best of all is that I remember what I read. It all goes on. When the clock is moving so slowly, when I've done my sums and I'm staring out the window, fidgeting and trapped, I can be back in yesterday's book, riding my pony with cowboys, or driving a race car, or hiding from pirates in a cave, and, if Miss Coffee doesn't catch me, flying, free as a seagull. Now, I might come back to that. Oh yeah, I'll read you another one from this. We're all very serious and ominous looking there. Every single time in my life that I give a poetry reading, I have a pang of regret that not once in all these years have I written a funny poem. Jesus, it's so depressing, I thought. Never once. Isn't that awful? Isn't that terrible? But he leaves school eventually. And God love him, the poor fool, he thinks things are going to improve as he heads into secondary school. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. No, things don't improve. Until that day in 5th year or 6th year, when the brother took a swing at me with the usual half hurley, and I caught it in midair and said, don't ever do that again. And what I felt was shame that I'd let it go on so long, that I hadn't grabbed it years before that. Curious, huh? Anyway, he gets summer holiday at the end of primary in the small closed yard. In the small closed yard, boys ricochet off the walls and bounce off each other, animal spirits all. Here the dark women patrol, each one a gliding mystery, some kind, some cruel, all veiled. Mrs. Ryan is dust, that room is dust and rubble under a road somewhere or in a landfill. The rocking horse, bright lit as by lightning in a storm, fades into black. Some of those boys are already gone, spun into the wind over the city they never left. They fall like snow, like ash, soft through the rippling music of the bells, on Shandon Street, St. Mary's Road, Fair Hill, on Churchfield and Gronabrugher, on Spangle Hill that became Farranree, down over the valley of sweet Blackpool. And I am still walking up Redemption Road, my hand warm in her warm hand, thumb under the strap of the school bag snug on my back, a clutch of drawings to be smoothed out on the kitchen table. Everyone will say they're very good, then they'll forget about them. I'll run outside, and everything will go on forever. I thought, as a gesture of respect and comradeship to Shema Santa Maria, that I might read this. It's from a translation I did of Federico Garcia Lorca's Romanceros Gitanos into Irish. And cheeky is one way of describing that. But I'll tell you why I did it, because you might just possibly be interested. With Cormac Brannock and Keith Payne, we did a show called, a show remembering Federico Garcia Lorca, and Cormac wrote some music for it. Keith translated some of Lorca's poems into English. I translated a few into Irish. But anyway, the upshot of it was a concert in the Residencia in Madrid, and read a few of these things in Irish. And people came up afterwards and said they had heard Lorca translated into any number of languages, but the only language in which they sensed the duende was when they heard him in Irish. And I felt myself then fake yassa to go and take my Anchangashin Latlium. I'm not even sure it's Latlium, but Sean would forgive me. And have a go at the Romancero. Having no Spanish, but having Latin and a very good dictionary and a brass neck. So this is number 11, for those of you who remember the Romancero. I'm sure many of you have it off by heart. It's Antoñito el Camborio when he's taken prisoner on the road to Sevilla. Antonio Torres Heredia, Mac agus Garvach Camborios, Bacal Chwelig a Umpurige chuig an Tarf Chorach a Sevilla. Dorachach na Gali Uine eag Shul go Maul go Grostúl. Lunrian a Chatal Snasta Idragahul, Lashley Shias of Oher, Yarshe Lemodi Crinne, Kiaun Kiaun, Iskashe is Jackson Ishki Iad, ons gur Umpig Cohor. Agus Lashley Shias of Oher, Fui Gegel Yawan, Rug Gardi Shivilti and Valig Word Winnader Loe, Ilin in Ilin. Dridden an lá hart go Maul, Crumman an Tiernon Gulin ag déan of Laragat, Taurera, Haram Weird is haar na strahain. Tá na hologa ag fehav lihi an hawr. Lehman lohin a garad achrach haar na cnic Louis. Antonio Torres Heredia, Mac agus Garvach Gamborios, gan bachel chwelig in a lavige, as cuig hati tri chuinjurk. Antonio Kehu in Echer. Da ma Camborio abanamdit is tussa verk fragrach as fuincha volle cuig stjal. Ní mac le héinehu, fiú ní Camborio dleachachu, imethe inis na gefóga a hiúlach na chnic in na néanar, tá na sean scanne chrifhuin smuit. Ag an éachlog san ihe, winter chuig a chiline, agus na gardaí si víalta ag ól na manáide. Ag an éachlog cuirtar fuig glas in a chiline, an spéir ag glisconach nos cahrona vromig. Bye, Federico. No. Okay. Oh yeah. By the way, agus mi de Lord and Welge, vi agel of untuk le Louis de Puerns in the examiner al Johanna volhing de enya de according Sims a changa, agus of course in the changa. Mullen gomore untuk and rode. So go on, two more poems to finish. The Angel of History, as there are few, if any, academics here, I don't need to apologize for having stolen the title from Walter Benjamin. It's got nothing at all to do with him. But with the election looming, I thought it might be interesting. The poem actually came to me, I don't know if you're familiar with the National Library in Dublin, but one of its rare pleasures is that if you stand outside the National Library, you're treated to the spectacle of our lords and masters and their female counterparts walking backwards and forwards into the Dáil behind bars. And it's a curious comfort to me to look at our rulers behind bars. Is that abrasive enough, Philly? The Angel of History. In the Parliament House on Kildare Street, the lamps were burning. It was a winter night, the usual slant rain falling. I had paused to light up a cigarette, to watch the lone guard stamp her feet, blow uselessly into her cupped, gloved hands. In the colonnade of the National Library, a man was standing, a man neither old nor young, his head bare, half turned towards the lights in the Parliament House, the high, blank windows. I saw him reach inside his long, loose coat, take out a notebook. I crossed the road, gathering my own long coat around me, stood in behind him, looked over his shoulder. He paid no heed. One after another, I saw him strike them out from a long list of names, senators, deputies, ministers. One after another, the names dissolved on the page, a scant dozen remaining. I watched him ink in a question mark after each of these, neat and precise. He put the book away, sliding it down carefully into a deep pocket. He turned and looked at me. Nothing like pity in those hollow eyes. He sighed, then squared his shoulders, lifted his face to the rain, and was gone. Gone as if he had never been. But I saw him. I know who he was. I witnessed that cold, exact cancellation. Walked on, walked home, thoughtful, afraid for my country. And one to finish. All my life I have practiced, I hope, a due and proper modesty, but every now and then I get a rush of blood to the head. And this was a hubristic moment. That wonderful poet, Caroline Duffy, had asked a number of people to pick a favorite poem and write a response to it. And the poem I loved all my life was Ithaca, Cavafy's Ithaca. And so, as I say, in a moment of hubris, I decided I'd write a response to Ithaca. Now, as it happened, at the time, Leonard Cohen's wonderful album, 10 New Songs, had come out. Do you know that album? Well, there's a song in it called Say Goodbye to Alexandra Leaving. And it's an almost line-by-line direct steal from Cavafy's The God Abandons Anthony. And I read it, and I heard the song, took down my Cavafy just to check that I wasn't losing the plot or having flashbacks. And sure enough, and I was thinking, Leonard, you lovely thief. What a great job of thievery, which it was. So in a further moment of madness, I told you there was something in the water that week. John McKenna, a friend of mine, has been a great friend of Cohen's, and I got Cohen's email from him and said, I've written a poem. I'd like to dedicate it to you, just as a gesture of thanks for all those wonderful songs down through the years, but I won't inflict the poem on you. So I got an email back saying, oh, please send the poem. So I did. And do you ever have one of those take the rest of the day off, take the rest of the week off moments? This was a take the rest of the month off moment. I got an email back. Honored, Leonard. It rhymes, it scans, and it's admirably economical. But that was that by way of explaining, if you should happen to have the book, why it's dedicated to Leonard Cohen, with whom I share a birthday. It's all very cosmic around here suddenly. I know, I always knew that acid would catch up with us. Ithaca, you've been remarkably patient and difficult to read, but you haven't actually thrown things, so I'll take that as not a reflection on Paul's choice of programme. It was a joy to hear the Gael took the Listúil in full flow tonight. It was pure pleasure. And I noticed our friend still writes in the Shanachloe. Yeah. So does Nuala Gonal, Louis, doesn't she? I think Nuala still writes in the Shanachloe. Yeah. Anyway, and María, here, we have to get you translated into Irish. This man can translate you into Irish. That would be good. So thank you for being here, and congratulations again to Paul and his team for a wonderful lineup for the festival. This is Ithaca. It's approximately 2 minutes and 40 seconds long. So settle yourselves and try not to look at the watch until I'm finished. When you set out from Ithaca again, let it be autumn, early, the plain leaves falling as you go, for spring would shake you with its quickening, its whispers of youth. You will have earned, I have to stop. I forgot to explain the most important thing, which is the whole point of this is Odysseus leaves for Troy. He gets to Troy in 6 months. It takes, depending on which authority you believe, either 10 years or 20 years to get home. You have to feel he's not in a hurry to get back to the farm. You know, counting the goats and the sheep and sitting by the fireside in winter, staring into space. So Penelope dies, his son Telemachus is away off into his own life, and he's sitting there. What's he going to do? He's going to make himself a boat and head off out again. That's what he's going to do. I should have explained this at the start so you have some sort of orientation mark. Ithaca. When you set out from Ithaca again, let it be autumn, early, the plain leaves falling as you go. For spring would shake you with its quickening, its whispers of youth. You will have earned the road down to the harbour, duty discharged, your toll of labour paid, the house 4 square, your son in the full of fatherhood, his mother, your long beloved, gone to the shades. Walk by the doorways, do not look left or right, do not inhale the wood smoke, the shy glow of the young girls, the resin and pine of home. Stand there and hold their gaze. They have been good neighbours. Plank fitted to plank, slow work and sure, the mast straight as your back. Water and wine, oil, salt and bread. Take a hand in yours for luck. Cast off the lines without a backward glance and sheet in the sail. There will be harbours, shelter from weather. There will be long, empty passages far from land. There may be love or kindness. Do not count on this, but allow for the possibility. Be ready for storms. When you take leave of Ithaca, round to the south, then strike far down for Circe, Calypso, what you remember, what you must keep in mind. Trust to your course, long since laid down for you. There was never any question of turning back. All those who came the journey with you, those who fell to the flash of bronze, those who turned away into other fates, are long gathered to asphodel and dust. You will go uncompanioned, but go you must. There will be time in the long days and nights, stunned by the sun or driven by the stars, to unwind your spool of life. You will learn again what you always knew. The wind sweeps everything away. When you set out from Ithaca again, you will not need to ask where you are going. Give every day your full reflective attention, the rise and flash of the swell on your beam, the lift into small harbours. And do not forget Ithaca. Keep Ithaca in your mind, all that it was and is and will be without you. Be grateful for where you have been, for those who kept to your side, those who strode out ahead of you or stood back and watched you sail away. Be grateful for kindness in the perfumed dark, but sooner or later you must sail out again. And some morning, some clear night, you will come to the pillars of Heracles. Sail through if you wish. You are free to turn back. Go forward on deck. Lay your hand on the mast. Hear the wind in its dipping branch. Now you are free of home and journeying, rocked on the cusp of tides. Ithaca is before you. Ithaca is behind you. Man is born homeless and shaped for the sea. You must do what is best. Margaret, thank you.
Bhí sin go háling. Gur maith go Theo. Gur maith go Maria. I gur maith go to Hamish. So, it's toch can make sauce beag going ish. We'll have a break and then there'll be another poetry session as the festival continues. Perhaps we'll just have one last round of applause for our three readers, please.